Okay. Welcome to the YOL Partner Spotlight Series. I'm David Cherner, co-founder and CEO of YOL, and with me today is Michael Papay, co-founder and CEO of Sageful AI. Hi,
Hi,
Michael.
David. Hi, everybody. Excited to be here today.
We're excited to have you. For those of you unfamiliar with this series, this is an opportunity for us to highlight our amazing partners and how they help extend and fortify the YOL learning experiences. And I am so excited to welcome Michael today as Sageful AI is our latest, newest partner, and we could not be more excited about working with Michael and his amazing team. Just some quick background for those of you who are not familiar with YOL. We are a corporate learning and well-being company. We've been in business for a decade now. We're based in Mill Valley, California, and our mission is to elevate compassion, connection, and collaboration through holistic well-being programs and human-centered leadership. And Michael is a seasoned technology pioneer with 25 years of experience building and leading businesses focused on enabling positive change at work. And for anybody in the employee engagement space or has been in the employee engagement space, you've no doubt heard of or used a really cool tool called Waggle, which Michael founded and led through its acquisition by Perceptix a few years ago, and recently embarked on a new journey, which we'll hear a little bit about with Sageful AI. Real quickly on the agenda today. So Michael talk a little bit about Sage's founding story and how and why they do what they do. I'm going to ask Michael some questions on corporate learning and well-being. And then Michael will walk us through a demo and we'll open it up for questions, time permitting. So how does that sound?
That sounds amazing. And just fired up to be here and fired up about our partnership. I mean, well-being is such a critical thing for individuals, but I think there's just huge impact for organizations. Like if you get yourself right and centered and well, like just so much performance improvement can come from that. And that's why we're excited about the partnership, because it's great material and it's great practice. I had a great fortune this morning to take the dog for a run and sit down and do 5 minutes of meditation just to kind of get centered. And it's really powerful work, but it really comes down to practice and behavior change, which is what we're all about at Sageful AI and Sagey. So I thought for this morning's call, I could just like unveil my excitement about the partnership.
All right.
And I got the whole shirt on, so like I'm ready to go. Like let's do this, David.
We are so excited to be working with you guys. Why don't we start with I would love to hear a little bit about the Sage founding story and how you got to it. For those of you unfamiliar with Michael's background, I mentioned Waggle, and he's been in the business for a while. This is Michael's, I don't know, third or fourth startup in the learning space, and he's worked across the learning space. But I think you can do your story justice a lot better than I can. So I'm going to turn it over.
All right. Thanks. I mean, I was fortunate to go off to Babson College and study entrepreneurship. So I knew right away, I was like intrigued from day one with starting a business. And then early on in my career, I got the opportunity to start up a company called Fort Hill, which my best friend's father had been doing management and leadership development for 30 years. And what he found was that where the rubber meets the road is how do you get people to actually transfer these behaviors, take action on the job? And so we came up with a web-based follow-through process to drive action plans pursuant to training programs. And we worked with great training programs and great organizations from GE Crotonville and Deloitte and Kaiser Permanente to Ken Blanchard Company and Center for Creative Leadership. So early on, I got to cut my teeth on this challenge of behavior change at the individual leader and manager level. And from there, took a lot of those learnings and put it into Waggle, which is it's behavior change, but it's a little bit more at a macro level. Like organizations source feedback from their employees all the time with culture and engagement surveys. But how do you translate that into meaningful change and action? So we promoted capability like crowdsourcing that created alignment and made the data more actionable. And also enrollment started to pull people into the process. We made it transparent to be able to put back pressure on action. So it just wasn't, the act of keeping a secret, but the information's out there and we got to actually do something about it. So that was a really great journey. We raised venture and grew the business and ultimately sold to Technology Crossover Ventures and Perceptics, part of a bigger suite of employee listening. And that product's now called Dialogue inside their solution set. So I had the great opportunity after the acquisition to spend a couple years doing partnerships and alliance work and really, kept my finger on the pulse of what's happening in the marketplace. And then lo and behold, this just huge push with AI. Got together with my previous co-founder, Drew Badshaw, who heads up our technology in the previous examples that I shared with you, or organizations that we had started. And we just started noodling on like, what's our capability set? What's our passion? And what we really started circling around is behavior change. And with AI, it just a game-changing opportunity to make coaching and that level of support so much more accessible to organizations and employees. Like not every person has the great fortune to be able to have the resources to hire a Marshall Goldsmith to support their, coaching and development. But with AI, we really felt like coaching and that support could be more ubiquitous across things like onboarding, training programs, the well-being work that we're doing here at YOL, new manager hiring. A lot of these places just didn't support that kind of support and resource. So it's twofold, like how do we provide that learner the support they need to adopt the skills, change the behavior, transfer the learning. There's a lot of buzzwords in there, cross the knowing doing gap and get to that performance improvement. But how do we do it, in a way where we can show demonstrable results, where it's just not an exercise, but it's an exercise that supports the learner and gets to a result that we can start to wrap up and put together an impact report. Because I think the latest data shows 340 billion is spent in the US on training and development. And yet typically only about 20 or 25% of people transfer the knowledge, get to a performance improvement. So we really need to do a better job demonstrating the efficacy and impact of our work if that investment is going to continue to flow. So that's kind of 30,000 foot. We can get down into how the sausage is made a little bit more today, but that's a little bit of story about the journey. So, just in summary, passion is about helping organizations and people thrive and make the tough changes that they need to do so along the way.
Got it. Got it. Would you describe Sagey within the broader corporate learning landscape? How does it fit into the corporate learning landscape?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd say at this point, who knows where it ultimately evolves to, is it's an extension of an existing learning and development program. So, there's curriculum, there's concepts taught that might be via a webinar, an intact kind of classroom setting. There's lots of different modalities by which the learning is delivered. Maybe there's an assessment and people get some self-awareness about themselves. But then when they go back on the job, people get busy, and that's where Sagey really plugs in. It plugs in to the tail end of a development or learning experience, helps the person kind of shape their intention, and then supports them to make the desired change over time. Typically over about a 90-day period is what we're finding is a good support cycle. So I'd say, we're looking to complement the things, not replace, really complement and augment the things that are already in place inside the, chief learning officer stack of solutions out there.
Got it. Got it. I've got to say, so we have been demoing Sagey, which is the Sageful AI tool, as part of our flagship Foundations of Resilience program, which is our first launch with Sage, which we'll tell you about in a second. And I've just been amazed at how customized and personalized the tool has been to me. I feel like I've got my own personal well-being coach pinging me every couple of days and interacting with me in a really meaningful and personal way. Can you elaborate how Sageful AI creates personalized learning journeys for employees, and how Sageful AI supports behavior change? And you talked a little bit about it, but to drive meaningful outcomes for the participants.
Sure, yeah. And we can in a bit we can do a little demo to kind of show the mechanics of it, but
Great.
just so much, you take foundations of resiliency, like there's a lot of information that's taken in. And ultimately, we're looking for a practice field where someone can take a concept and put it against a challenge that they have. And so the first step in the process is to get clear and really focus down. I'm a big fan of I'm dating myself here, but the City Slickers, where like Curly, they're talking about the secret of life, and Curly puts up his fingers like one, it's about one thing, and that one thing's really true to you. So we try and get that learner really focused down on what's one thing you want to work on pursuant to this development experience that you had. And how's that going to impact something in your life? Because we got to make the association. We got to make the connectedness to I'm going to work on this concept of mindfulness. And in doing so, it's going to help me with these business challenges that I have. So once you make those associations, then Sage is designed to check in. And we want to meet the learner where they are. So we're trying not to build yet another system or technology solution that they need to log into, but we're able to plumb ourselves into Slack and Teams. And I think the version that you're using, David, is over text messaging.
Mm-hmm.
So we have different modalities by which we want to have that generative AI conversation with employees in the channels that they're familiar with. And then at the end of the process, we take them through a series of stages and steps and things that we know, given we've been doing this for a long time, we know some elements are important. Like, have you had a chance to chat with your manager about your development and what you're working on? Well, that's important. If you haven't, is there you want me to put together a summary of what we've been working on and put that together in an email? Like, we know that triggers behavior change if you get support, or if your manager is not the right person, let's explore some other people you can connect with. So that's an example of one stage in the journey. And at the end, we're going to ask stories of success. Let's look back over the last 3 months of our work together, and let's talk about something an action you took, some impact that you felt, and let's describe that in a succinct story. And that's both good for you personally to be able to wrap up and feel good about the progress that you're making. But then there's some really cool things we can do that from a summative basis, showing the efficacy and impact of the training and development initiative. So it's a journey that happens, but it's really predicated on getting focused on something that's meaningful to you.
Got it. Should we move to a demo?
Sure. Yeah, I can some of those screens.
That would be awesome.
I can share.
And you're going to show the Slack version, right?
Yes, I am. Here we go.
Great.
You're able to see my screen right here?
You can. A little small, but I think I can make my screen bigger.
Okay. So yeah, Sagey, this is the YOL demo that we set up for the Foundations program, Resiliency. And Sagey will show up after the training and development initiative. In this case, again, Foundations. And it's going to welcome you, set the ground rules a little bit. I'm just going to stimulate this with a code because we don't have the benefit of time passing here. So it's now a week after the learning and development experience. It says, hey, I'm excited to dive into and provide coaching on how you apply what you learned going forward. We're going to explore a lot of areas. Can you share one skill or concept from your learning that, if improved, could significantly boost your performance? So I'm just going to keep it kind of high level and see what Sagey does here. I want to work on my mindfulness. Now I mean, it's pretty obtuse. It's high level. So it's great. Great choice. Mindfulness can have a profound impact on your personal and professional life. Tell me a bit more about what aspects of mindfulness you want to focus on improving. Interested in daily mindfulness practice, managing stress, so now it's like pushing me the next click further to be like, okay, like what you learned different techniques at mindfulness, like what specifically? Like, I would like to work on journaling to support organizing my thoughts and reducing stress, as my days are pretty busy and my mind tends to get fairly cluttered. So I'm giving it a little bit more context here. Now it's going to say, like, can you, to better understand your goals, you share a little bit more about how you currently use journaling, if at all, challenges. So I'm going to say, like, I'm looking to do my journaling to start the morning and maybe end the day as the bookends for my work efforts. And then oh, it's still recording here. Let me stop that. So now it's like, got it. I'm going to summarize your focus area. You want to develop structural journaling process, start your day, organizing. Now it's going to push me one more click. Like, what impact do you believe that this is going to have on you, your team, and your organization? The impact should be felt by reducing stress, having deeper, more meaningful connections with my teammates that will result in higher engagement and us ultimately achieving our aggressive goals for the year. So we've taken kind of like a high level concept of mindfulness. We've broken it down into some more specificity around like journaling, like how you're going to do journaling. And it's really, like a coach, it's kind of worked me down. And as I said in that city slicker example, it's getting focused on that one thing. And then it's going to foreshadow, like, hey, for our next topic, I'm going to check in a week. We're going to explore some additional strategies on resilience boosters. And now it knows what I'm working on around journaling and mindfulness, but we've set Sagey up to be customized to the curriculum. So it knows, like, every week what kind of questions it's going to ask, but the questions are not hardwired. They're going to flex a little bit. Like you said, David, it feels very personalized. It's not going to be like just a survey question hitting me with a fixed question every week. It's going to be flexed based on my area of focus. Now, that's Sagey engaging me. I can engage Sagey. I can be like, I learned a lot of things in the program. Can you please remind me of a handful of the mindfulness techniques that we covered in the program? I'm having trouble remembering all of them. So what we've done is we've actually ingested the content from the YOL programs, and we've put it into our own database. It's called a vector database. And so when the participant or the learner asks a question, it basically vectors are applied to kind of the technical side of things. Vectors are applied to that question, goes in the database, matches up those vector coordinates, pulls out the block of content that it thinks addresses it from the YOL curriculum, and then it pushes it through prompt engineering to be able to come back, and you can see it's bolded, it's succinct, it's tight. So it's like the power of the pause, self-talk, mindfulness. Now it's giving me a few things to think about. If I wanted to, I could, we don't have the time to go a whole lot deeper into this, but I could like keep lifting and expanding these concepts and pulling back more and more content from the program. So that's kind of conceptually, that's the first interaction. You can picture what this would look like week 2, week 3. And we tend to believe that like a 10-week, 12-week, something like about a 90 days, it's long enough to be able to support the behavior change, and get the individual to be able to document an impact or a result from the program. So I'll just stop. I know I kind of gassed through a lot of detail there, David. Any kind
No,
of
no, no.
questions
That
or
was
thoughts
that's
there?
terrific. And apologies for the garbage truck outside my home right now. Um, Murphy's Law. Anyway, as I mentioned, or Michael mentioned, I've been using it via text and for the last week or 2 weeks or so, and it's really been it's been amazing. It did not feel canned at all. I was waiting for this canned content facing me every couple of days or whatever, but it was always fresh. It ready to answer additional queries by me. I was sort of pressure testing it a little bit and asking it to provide different interpretations of different concepts, and it then surfaced them. And most importantly, it gently reminded and nudged me to stay on my plan and focus on my intentions, which is one of the keys to behavior change. At a macro level, I've sort of just been thinking about, well, how is this going to help us and help our customers and help their employees? And the first thing that comes to mind, at least for us with YOL, is it really helps further measure the efficacy of our programming much more longitudinally than we'd ever been able to before, because of the reporting aspect of what it delivers. And so, Michael, maybe you can, beyond sort of the individual value the participant is getting, which we'll talk a little bit more about again, but can you talk a little about some of the benefits that organizations will realize from using Sageful?
Yeah. Um, Super excited about this because like measurement and documentation has historically been a discrete activity, right? It's a separate effort, a survey sent, there's analysis and analytics. Like what's very exciting about Sagey and what we're able to do is through these exchanges that we're having with the employees and the learners, we can measure and document through the exhaust of the coaching exchanges and put together summary impact reports. So measurement is not yet another disruptive activity, but it happens just in the flow of this benefit that we're delivering to the employees. So here's an example. This is another one of our training and development partners that we have. Is they focus on sales training. And of course, I've got the San Francisco Giants here being in the Bay Area, but they specialize in professional sports franchises. So this is an example impact report for like a sales training program. So it's got a nice kind of summary overview, gives a little context, like this was the nature of the program, virtual kickoff, in-person training, Sagey application. Here's some of the metrics. 97% of people applied something. 76 reported a positive impact on their performance, on effectiveness. 67% had a conversation with their manager. Here's the transfer and application rates happening and expanding over time. Week one, we didn't get everybody going, but over time, we've got uptake of the participants and the learners, and we're able to demonstrate that. And again, if you think back to, there's McKinsey studies and HBR articles, like the norm is 25% tops are taking action in a way that is improving their performance. So we're able to start to show that we're moving the needle there. And if you think about like that little interaction that I had around mindfulness and journaling, that would be able to be categorized into a bucket. And then we can demonstrate, like after the training program, here's where your folks are focusing. X% are focused on resilience concepts, Y are on this mindfulness technique. We'll be able to show the array of where people are focused. I think quick wins and early actions to be able to play this information back into the organization sooner is really key. So you don't have to wait till the end of the year, but you can say like, hey, we ran the program and look at what's happening already, because you can feed that back into subsequent programs and you can use it to build momentum for the initiative itself. I'll just show you a couple other screens. Like everybody, the data is anonymized, but we can lift out and take a story and say, here's a concept of one of the employees who applied some concepts, and here's examples of the results that they've generated. Here's another success case story. And then overall, like, here's the recommendations. We recommend X, Y, and Z based on what we're seeing from the data. So just a really efficient way to be able to put together impact reports that shows like, hey, a material investment was made, both in time and dollars, and here's what's happening back on the job from the continued investment standpoint and from the continuous improvement perspective.
Got it.
I'll stop sharing there. I think that's probably it for the demo, unless you want me to go deeper into the sausage today, Dave.
No, no, no. I think that's a good first step.
Okay.
And we look forward to sharing this with anybody that's interested. We'll get to that in a bit, but yeah. So I think you had some questions for me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, behavior change, right, is a challenging thing. I'm just curious, like you guys have had the privilege and delivered your amazing program to lots of learners and development contexts out there. So I'm just curious, like what you personally have found powerful around supporting change and really acquiring some of these skills, and also what you've seen in your programs, beyond Sagey, like there's, what are some things that
Yeah,
you're finding
sure.
effective?
I'd say personally, when I want to change my own behavior around certain things, I guess first just trying to look for patterns, right? So, looking for patterns to help reverse bad behaviors. Um, uh, Changing environments has always been helpful for me. Just, sort of getting out of the regular routine to try to get some impact, and then finally trying to set up mechanisms or reminders to that will provide constant positive reinforcement to me. A great example for me personally, so I, like many of us, struggle with sleeping, and this Aura Ring, do a little plug for Aura Ring, but has been super helpful for me in helping better understand what patterns, how to alter my sleep hygiene, or thinking about what my sleep hygiene is and how I might want to change it, how certain environments are more helpful to me in getting to sleep earlier and so forth. And I kind of view Sagey as like an Aura Ring, if you will, for our customers. We found in delivering our programs that one way to help enact behavior change is to stagger or kind of space out the learning a little bit, so we give folks a chance to absorb it. And it's been super helpful, I believe, in the way we intentionally set up our cohort based well-being programs to do just that. With Sagey now, we can help our participants be more successful by having this personalized well-being coach that's there for them beyond the program. So we're extending the program, we're extending our ability, or enhancing our ability to measure the efficacy of the program, and we're now providing real opportunities that we didn't have before to change behaviors. It's been just been super enlightening to watch over the last couple of weeks, and I can't wait to see it unleashed on a much larger population beyond our team and demo testers.
That's exciting. And I think I'd say the other thing, just personally, I'm curious about like this incredible concepts that you're teaching folks around well-being and resilience and mindfulness. Like, I'm just curious, like out of all the things that you've seen out there, like what do you personally find effective, or is there like a silver bullet, like, hey, just taking a deep breath, or like, I'm just curious, like, what's some low-hanging fruit for folks to be like, hey, this is like a really powerful concept I should be bringing a little more into my life on.
Right, right. Well, I'll first say there are no silver bullets. I think what's most important and what we teach in our programs is to figure out what works best for you, and build it into your life, build it into your processes, and hopefully have it mentally available to you when you need it. And in the resilience programming that we deliver, the foundations program, for one, we teach what we call resilience boosters, which are a number of different practices and strategies that folks can use. Some in the moment, which we call somatic strategies. Somatic is connecting mind and body. And some are over time, what we call foundational builders. Some example, the number we will typically offer, I don't know, 20 of each, and explain to folks that you should pick what's right for you, what feels right for you, what is easy for you, and you may change that. So, the ones that I rely on are box breathing. We all know what box breathing is, but that helps me regulate my nervous system and at a time of stress, for example. Grounding, putting your feet on the ground and feeling your feet on the ground. And as we've all been taught, to align our spine. I mean, those are simple somatic strategies that can help us regulate our nervous system at a time of stress. Over time, the foundational builders, some examples are reflective writing and cultivating flow states, something Steph Curry does really well. Two that I sort of lean on are one, forest bathing, or as it's known in Japan, I think where it probably originated, Shinrin Yoku. We have, as humans, we have a natural tendency to seek communion with nature and other living organisms, which is called biophilia. But forest bathing here, Michael and I are fortunate to live in a cool place with a lot of giant redwoods. And just getting outside and walking amongst the trees, there's a lot of data behind it. That's the impact of forest bathing on your well-being. So that's sort of something that I will rely on. And another thing that I rely on that is a big part of YOL are performing acts of service. Getting out of yourself and being of service or to service to another individual, another organization. In fact, when we started YOL, we were, 100% of our programs were in person, and a large part of those included a service component. So we typically would deliver some well-being, and we deliver some learning, and there would be a shared service component, and a lot of data there on the impact of service on your well-being. So that's also sort of a what we call a foundational builder that people can rely on over time. So
It's
those are
just,
quick
it's
examples.
incredible. Thank you. I like selfishly, taking that in. I appreciate it. Just think about the opportunity and power here to be able to deliver these concepts to thousands of people, help them in their lives manage and cope with stress and ultimately thrive in their personal and workplace lives, and then be able to like give them the support and the bridging that they need to convert it to real behavior change. Like, fired up. That's why I'm wearing the t-shirt today. All
So we got some questions in the chat here, Michael.
right.
What emerging trends do you see in the field of AI-driven corporate learning?
Yeah, that's a big question. I mean, the ground is shifting under our feet as we speak right now. But I think the kind of the macro, like where the puck is going, is programs can be defined and instructional design is going to change radically, where it becomes hyper individualized. Like, ultimately there's a bank of content, like David's talked about, like there's no silver bullet. Like, let's take these concepts and make them personal. Like, take that and put that on steroids. Like, we know what your career aspirations are. We know your performance objectives. We know the feedback that you've gotten. We know your assessments. Like, here's some development that's going to spit out for you over the next, you know, 6 months or something like that. So I think like hyper localization of content based on the context around an individual is probably like a transformative thing that's, happening over time here with AI.
Got it. And how can organizations stay ahead of these trends, this trend to ensure continuous improvement in their learning and development initiatives?
I think the biggest thing is like it's all new, and anytime there's something new, there's like a barrier put up. Like you want to kind of give it the Heisman, like throw a little resistance on it. But I think like flip the mindset around and think about experimentation. Like, hey, we don't have to jump all the way into that vision state that I just talked about. Like, let's try something simple and light and, get a little bit of experience here, because it's not going away and things are going to change rapidly. So I think experimentation and trial and error is a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So at YOL, we're focused, as you know, on building connected and collaborative workplaces, which is increasingly needed in this era of distributed workforces. One of our colleagues and advisors has advised us to focus on intentional moments of connection and collaboration. Companies really need to do that. It's been interesting to see the impact of AI on connection and collaboration. There was a sort of a report which really, we talked about this, but really alarmed me a little bit about some of the younger workers and their use of AI instead of relying on, younger workers, so the youngest workers in your organization. There's some new data that they are going to ChatGPT rather than going to their managers or their mentors for support, which of course reduces connection and collaboration. Uh, I'd love to hear a little bit more from you. First of all, your thoughts on that, but just back to sort of the broader notion of building connected and collaborative workplaces. How does Sagey align with and support that goal?
Yeah, well, it's that's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. It's like connections, one of the core values, and I think that's probably how we've found ourselves in this universe together. It's something we share deeply. It was a big part of Waggle. Like we believed that connecting the voice of the employee to the needs of the organization and doing that in a really respectful way is was really the fuel that drove positive behavior change. So I think that's like innate in our belief in terms of how we're building the technology. We want to use AI for a force of good, and that's our belief. Like we want it to be more accessible. And maybe there is an element of like, hey, I'm not really comfortable. I got a new manager. I'm not comfortable asking this concept. And maybe there is a little bit of there's some connection that happens through the AI to be able to get some input and, acid test some things and test some concepts out. But we're trying to stimulate more meaningful connection through the journey. I talked about the manager's role, or if like the manager, you don't have a great rapport with the manager and you're not comfortable talking about your well-being at this point, like who can you talk to? Is there a peer? So we're going to build those breakpoints into the process and in our kind of coaching wrapped around Sagey to look for connection, because that connection is critical to sustain change and to kind of ultimately get to the improvement and engagement that we're looking for people.
Got it. Got it. I could not agree more. How can leaders leverage AI to foster a culture of empathy and connection within their teams?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say there's work to be done on that front, and but moving to that vision state, I could picture a world where AI goes out. Managers wake up in the morning and they have lots of things to do, and they're not always thinking about the like development and feedback aspect of the role, thinking about like, I got to make my numbers and get these things done. It's not that they don't want to do those things, it's just there's lots of pressure. So maybe there's AI to help facilitate that. Like, hey, you know, David's, I want to check in and see how David's doing. He's asked me to go out and get some feedback every 6 months. Like, what's something David's doing really well? What's something that's, you'd like to see David do better in his role as a leader and a manager? And that can kind of like be happening in the white space and roll that back. You can see flowing information into one-on-ones like, hey, you might want to be thinking about these things when you're talking to Michael. These are, things that he really cares about. He's brought up in previous meetings. So I think like enabling those kind of more human moments, there's going to be a huge opportunity for AI to step in there and play a bigger role.
Mhm. Just check on time. Looks like we've got a few minutes left. One more question in the chat. In your in your experience, what are the most common challenges organizations face when implementing AI-driven learning solutions?
Yeah, it's also new, like we're talking to organizations, and I heard this title for the first time just yesterday, like a chief AI officer. Like that's new. And there's like AI governance boards and like, setting up some basic ground rules for how we're going to use it and privacy. So I think like, we're in like super early stage and organizations are kind of defining their point of view. So I think we have to like juxtapose about getting enough of those processes in place so that like, this is there's some safety there, but then also not so much that it encumbers the experimentation that I talked about before. It's like, so I think that's the like striking the right balance between those two things.
Yeah, I mean, I think like every new technology, the adoption goes through different phases. We've run into that, as you know, in the last month, we've been pitching this partnership to one of our large enterprise customers, and they are super excited, but said, hey, we've got this new AI governance board. This is a multinational company, and everything needs to go by them. So it's gonna take a little bit of time, but this is something the industry as a whole is dealing with, like with any new technology, and particularly around issues of governance and security and privacy is what we had heard about. But I think one of the great aspects of Sageful AI is that you guys can implement this on multiple platforms and in multiple ways. So it can be on Slack, it can be on Teams, it can be on WhatsApp, it can be on text. And so I think there'll be just, different ways of mitigating some of these questions that come from, the, I don't want to be derogatory here, but in certain companies,
Yeah.
the uh, uh, more conservative folks in the organizations are trying to um, do their job. But I think the benefits will become apparent to most companies in a short time. I mean, we've just sort of been blown away by the possibilities here with our programs, and I think our customers will as well. So
Sure.
I know were you to say something?
No, I think that's it all comes back to what I was talking about, experimentation, and our point of view is like we want to augment, like, so there's lots of great material out there, whether it's a book, PowerPoint slides. One unintended benefit coming out of the pandemic is there's lots of great recordings of sessions. Like there's no shortness of content out there. And we're able to ingest that content relatively efficiently, and put together a learning journey and sequence. And so to your point, like I think the benefit is huge, and you know, um, organizations will move pretty quickly through this curve of figuring out like what the right tolerances of risk mitigation are to get to the other side of the benefits.
No question about
So
it.
I know we're like right on our time, so I want to make sure I'm like uh, asking that like parting gift back to you. Like your programs are incredible. Like how can people learn more about what you guys are up to?
Yeah, what we're up to. So Sagey will be available next month with our flagship Foundations of Resilience program, and we're looking forward to rolling it out with all YOL Wellbeing and Leadership programs in the coming months. And to learn more about our partnership or learn more about each of our organizations, I'd suggest they just folks just contact either Michael or myself. I'm at david@experienceyol.com. Michael's at Papay, Papay at sageful.ai, or just visit our sites. There are, reach out mechanisms on each of our sites and say, hey, I want to learn about the Sageful AI and YOL partnership, or about the YOL enhanced programs with Sageful AI. And we'd love to walk you through it. I think this is a really game changing development in for us certainly, and in the broader field of learning and development, and particularly as it relates to wellness and well-being, given the behavior change aspect that was not available to us. So I am super excited, and I'm super grateful for you for joining us today, Michael. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, proud to be part of this partnership, and I'm just looking forward to having significant impact together through our work. So let's go.
Let's do it. Awesome.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks everybody for joining us, and thanks to all of you who are watching this after the fact. Look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks a lot.